Tonight on Currents News, the crisis is not letting up. A Queens family is getting hit hard twice and across borders.
COVID-19 is taking over in Latin America. I'm Jessica Easthope with how one family here in the Brooklyn Diocese is looking to forgive those taking advantage of the most vulnerable.
Surges again throughout the United States. New details about possible rollbacks and a New York area quarantine. The Big Apple's city workers are facing layoffs by the thousands. The outbreak is crippling the economy. A parish devoted to the needs of Black Catholics is being set up in the Diocese of Pittsburgh. The bishop is saying Mass celebrated there is special.
It's full of life, and sometimes Masses can go on for quite some time, but it's expressive of the Black culture.
Plus, election 2020, primaries in New York, the race for the White House, and more. Our expert Brian Browne is here. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. The coronavirus crisis is unrelenting. New infections are surging in parts of the United States, and in Latin America, entire countries are in a pandemic death grip. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story of a Catholic family in the Diocese of Brooklyn anguished over what's happening in their homeland.
COVID-19 is taking over in Latin America, hitting Chile, Mexico, Brazil, and Peru the hardest. In the Brooklyn Diocese, Peruvian families who have experienced the worst of the pandemic are now desperate to help their relatives back home.
The virus really affected my household. We were isolated for 2 months and I wasn't able to see my children, and I was having a lot of medical issues.
Rosa Pajares and her husband, Juan Avila, feel helpless. Rosa's mother and 2 sisters are back in Peru. COVID-19 is ravaging her hometown, and there's a severe shortage of oxygen.
The need for oxygen is really high, but people don't have money, so there's not a lot of places you can get it.
Peru's oxygen shortage is igniting a healthcare crisis. People are forced to buy the life-saving canisters at exorbitant markups. Some are even turning to the black market.
People are taking advantage, reselling the oxygen at a high price, and not a lot of people can get it, and people are dying.
Peru has reported more than 183,000 cases of COVID-19, and more than 5,000 people have died from the virus. Rosa has already suffered a tremendous loss.
I'm sorry.
Her brother, who was living here in the United States, was killed by COVID-19.
This affected my family so much. We needed financial help from friends, and we were not able to have a dignified funeral for my brother.
Through her faith, Rosa says she's forgiven those taking advantage of her home country's most vulnerable.
The people reselling the oxygen, I pray to God to help these people and to help me not judge them. And I ask God to help me love them and for them to change their hearts.
In Jamaica, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Tonight, New York City is facing one of the worst economic crises ever, and up to 22,000 city workers could be out of a job by this fall. Mayor Bill de Blasio saying he's running out of options.
We are dealing with the greatest economic crisis this city has known in almost 90 years, and we're dealing with the greatest fiscal crisis that we've seen in generations. And all this is coming together on top of all the pain and all the challenges in this city because of the healthcare crisis.
De Blasio is pointing to about $9 billion in tax revenue that has disappeared from the books as the pandemic cripples the city's economy. He's describing the layoffs and furloughs as a last-ditch way to close the budget gap. More than 320,000 people are in the city's workforce. New York and 2 neighboring states are clamping down on out-of-towners, locking some of them down in quarantine for 2 weeks. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, along with New Jersey's Phil Murphy and Connecticut's Ned Lamont, announced the move this morning.
People coming in from states that have a high infection rate must quarantine for 14 days. And we have a calibration for the infection rate, and any state that goes over that infection rate that state will be subject to the quarantine.
The order starts at midnight. Residents of Texas, Florida, and 7 other states will be included immediately. The lockdown applies to any state where 10% of the population tested positive for the disease. Thanks to those states where cases are growing, the U.S. just recorded its 3rd highest daily total of new cases, and health officials say the coronavirus is not under control.
We're now seeing a disturbing surge of infections. The next couple of weeks are going to be critical in our ability to address those surgings that we're seeing.
New weekly cases are on the rise in at least 26 states, including California, recording 5,000 new cases, its highest daily count since the start of the pandemic. In Texas, one of the first states to begin reopening, Governor Greg Abbott now says it's possible restrictions will be back.
Because the spread is so rampant right now, there's never a reason for you to have to leave your home unless you do need to go out. The safest place for you is at your home.
There's no statewide mandate for wearing masks in Texas, nor is there in Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis is still resisting issuing one.
Catch more flies with honey than vinegar. When you attach criminal penalties for something, you got to enforce it. And the question is, in some of the parts of Florida, is that really a good use of resources?
Top health officials testified before a House committee about the Trump administration's response to the coronavirus.
We've all done the best that we can do to tackle this virus. And the reality, it brought this nation to its knees.
But on the question of a possible vaccine,
I still think there is a reasonably good chance that by the very beginning of 2021, that if we're going to have a vaccine, that we will have it by then.
There are more than 140 vaccines being developed right now by researchers around the world. Joe Biden was the easy winner in New York's Democratic primary yesterday, but tonight there are other cliffhanger races still to be decided. Veteran Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney is holding a narrow lead in the 12th district. House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Eliot Engel is trailing New York teacher Jamal Bowman in the 16th district, and the final results could take days as mail-in ballots are counted. In the 10th district, incumbent Jerry Nadler is declaring victory, and so too is Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the 14th district. Barack Obama going online with Joe Biden last night for a virtual fundraiser. The former president calling for donations to the campaign of the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee.
I am here to say that help is on the way if we do the work, because there's nobody that I trust more to be able to heal this country and get it back on track than my dear friend Joe Biden.
The Biden campaign reportedly raked in contributions from some 120,000 people. Last month, Biden outraised President Trump for the first time, but the GOP still has a much bigger war chest in the bank. The president held his second rally after rebooting his 2020 campaign on Saturday. He was in Phoenix, Arizona last night for a Students for Trump event at the Dream City Church. He condemned protesters for trying to tear down American statues.
The left-wing mob is trying to demolish our heritage so they can replace it with a new repressive regime that they alone control. They're tearing down statues, desecrating monuments, and purging dissenters.
Trump said that's not the behavior of a peaceful political movement. Instead, he called it the behavior of totalitarians and tyrants who don't love the country. Stay right here. Political analyst Brian Browne from St. John's University will be with us. He'll be looking at the races and what's next on the campaign trail. That's still ahead in this newscast. One of those monuments the president is talking about, a statue of Christopher Columbus, came down this morning in New Haven, Connecticut. The city's Parks Department gave the okay for the removal, but supporters of Columbus didn't approve. Protesters against the Italian-American icon cheered as the monument was removed. The statue now heads to the Knights of Columbus Museum. New York City's famous statue of Columbus is safe for now. In 2018, the Columbus Circle Monument was listed on both the state and national registers of historic places, which offers protection for the statue under preservation laws. Still, there's a petition going around to rename Columbus Circle and get rid of the statue. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo is insisting the statue stay right where it is in Columbus Circle, pointing to its importance in the Italian-American community. On Capitol Hill, Democrats in the Senate blocked the GOP's police reform bill. They say the legislation is an inadequate response to nationwide calls for action to address police misconduct and racial injustice. The bill was led by South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, the only black Republican senator. The bill failed to get the 60 votes needed. One of the Louisville police officers involved in the deadly shooting of Breonna Taylor has been fired. It's been 3 months since the 26-year-old black woman was killed in her own home after cops used a no-knock search warrant to get in. According to police reports, Breonna's boyfriend opened fire first before the cops shot back. The termination letter to Officer Brett Hankison says he violated procedures by showing, quote, extreme indifference to the value of human life. Gun sales are up across the country, and at least one gun industry analyst says it's connected to the unrest that began after the recent cases of police brutality and calls to defund the police. However, gun sales were already high because of coronavirus. Between January and April, there was a 48% increase in background checks compared to the same time last year. Indictments handed down late today by a Georgia grand jury for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. The 25-year-old black man was shot to death as he jogged through a predominantly white neighborhood in Cobb County. The indictments accuse Greg McMichael, his son Travis, and William Bryan of 9 counts of murder and assault. There's a lot more news headed your way. It's their own personal parish, why a church in Pittsburgh is seeing some big changes. Plus, chaotic. That's how our political analyst is describing this presidential election season. We'll check in with him next. And Pope Francis prays for Mexico, his message to the country after a devastating earthquake. Stay with us.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
I hope that this is a time when we all get it, that we really do have to root out racism, which is a sin.
Bishop David Zupik of the Diocese of Pittsburgh is taking action to achieve that goal. He's helping to establish a personal parish, a church dedicated to the specific needs of Black Catholics. Currents News' Emily Druby has the story.
A personal parish for Black Catholics.
Black Catholics have particular prayer needs, spiritual needs.
It's a church anyone, no matter where they live, can join. A trailblazing idea out of the Diocese of Pittsburgh. It was born from a listening session held earlier in the year. The diocese says the change is especially meaningful now, as hundreds of thousands have taken to the streets with demands to stamp out the sin of racism, social unrest from coast to coast in the wake of the deaths of George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, and others.
It's a critical time, and I hope that this is a time when we all get it, that we really do have to root out racism, which is a sin. And I'm not sure that, we've come in the past to a point of being able to empathize with our Black sisters and brothers.
For the parish, the diocese chose St. Benedict the Moor Church. For 130 years, the church has had a rich history of ministering to Black Catholics.
If you've had a chance to ever go to St. Benedict's to celebrate the Mass, it's full of life. And sometimes Masses can go on for quite some time, but it's expressive of the Black culture.
It also sits next to Freedom Corner, a civil rights landmark.
It stands on the hill that overlooks the city. That has to be a constant reminder to us of how important Black Catholics are for us as a church.
The church, named for Benedict the Moor, a 16th century saint born to African slave parents. He became a Franciscan friar.
Bishop David Zupik will celebrate Mass at the church on July 12th, and it will officially become a personal parish for Black Catholics the next day. In Windsor Terrace, Brooklyn, Emily Druby, Currents News.
The votes are still being counted after primary day. Voting happened in several states, including New York, but there are some frontrunners already. Political analyst Brian Browne from St. John's University is here now to talk about the results so far and also about a new poll in the presidential race. And Brian, first the primaries. While we have to wait for those mail-in ballots to be counted in yesterday's primary here in New York, we do know progressive congressional candidate Jamal Bowman has a big lead right now over longtime incumbent Representative Eliot Engel. Some are calling him the next AOC, who was also a big winner. Is this a bad sign for some of our longtime politicians?
Well, certainly what we saw that began 2 years ago with AOC, we did see repeated last night, where Jamal Bowman, a progressive candidate, at least with the in-person vote, he has a sizable lead. And it's not only him, but you have a number of congressional candidates. Carol Maloney is locked in a tight race. A lot of down ballot candidates as well in the New York State legislature, long-serving incumbents, are poised to lose to upstart insurgents with limited political experience, but who are finding success with their campaigns.
Wow. All right. Now moving on to the presidential race, a new New York Times Siena College poll shows Joe Biden with a 14-point lead over Donald Trump. That's the biggest lead he's had so far. There are many possible reasons for this: the economy, the handling of the virus, the racial unrest. What do you think is the biggest reason why Trump's polls are down?
Well, he has never been a popular president, and he is a chaos candidate. And what you're seeing right now is sort of a chaos campaign and what's looking like a chaos election. November is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. And we saw a little bit of an omen of that yesterday when it came to paper ballots and absentee ballots and some of the issues around that. But Donald Trump has really struggling in the polls. Joe Biden is still kind of couched in basement and is seeing an increase in his standing in the polls. But there's a lot of time between now and November. We're going to have debates. Every day is something unexpected, especially in the Trump administration. But this election is really going to be a referendum, I think, on the COVID-19 response and the race relations and the sort of real unrest that we've seen lately. And Donald Trump has a lot of work to do and a lot of ground to make up with voters.
All right, what about Biden? What does he have to do or not do to keep his lead? You'll remember a big supporter was heard saying Biden should stay in the basement.
Yeah, I mean, right now that sounds like a good strategy, and it seems to be working. I think he'll get a lot of attention when he makes his vice presidential pick, and we'll see how that moves the needle or not. He has said that he will pick a female candidate, so that should help certain members of the Democratic base. But right now, I think Biden's strategy is kind of stay in the basement and do no harm.
All right, what about mail-in ballots? You mentioned them before. Because of the pandemic, many use them for the primaries, may use them for the November election. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts first, I asked for an absentee ballot, and I did not get one. So I cast my vote in person yesterday, which was fine. But we really need to work the kinks out, in particular here in New York, where yesterday there were 1.7 million requests statewide for paper ballots. Again, certainly that's what I think we're going to be talking about come November, but the states really have to figure out the kinks and make it easier and get them out of the hands of the people so they can cast their ballot. One thing for certain, I think we're not going to have a declared winner come November 3rd on election night because there will be so many paper ballots out there to be counted.
Right. All right. We'll have to wait and see. Brian Browne, St. John's University political science professor. Thanks for being here.
Great to be with you.
Emergency workers in Mexico are searching for survivors tonight after a powerful earthquake rocked the country. Scores of hospital patients were evacuated when the 7.4 tremor struck yesterday, killing at least 6 people. The quake was centered in the southern state of Oaxaca. More than 500 homes in the area were damaged. This morning at the Vatican, Pope Francis remembered those who are suffering from the disaster.
Rezamos por todos ellos. Hermanos y hermanas, les estoy muy cercano.
The Holy Father also asked the Lord to give strength to the Mexican people in their hour of need. Mexico is one of the hardest hit countries during the pandemic. The virus outbreak is forcing the cancellation of this year's Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. All Muslims are required to make the trip at least once if they're able to do so, and millions travel to Saudi Arabia every year. The announcement canceling the religious visit is believed to be the first time in history that's happened. Still to come on Currents News, imagine being at the same job for 77 years. We'll meet this dedicated employee and tell you why she's being celebrated. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Age is but a number for California's oldest state worker. May Lee just celebrated her 100th birthday and her biggest wish to get back to work. Teo Torres has more on her first day back on the job.
Yeah, I've been off 3 months at home, working from home.
Like so many state workers, May Lee has been teleworking since the pandemic began. But before COVID-19, she was in the office 4 days a week.
I enjoy doing what I'm doing.
And she's been doing it for a long time.
I started in 1943. So I got 77 years of state service.
She started in the Department of Finance before it split into the Department of General Services.
I try to help the state save money or generate revenue to support a program.
And she's good at it.
Nickels and dimes, really. This is a woman that knows our entire accounting system and structure.
Things have changed a lot in 77 years.
We didn't have air conditioning back then. We didn't have a computer.
But what hasn't changed? May's work ethic.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but this is a woman who remembers what happened in 1976 with this account.
Her commitment to the department and to her colleagues.
All the time I try to finish my work as soon as I can so I could help somebody else.
For that, she's beloved.
I think what really she brings the most to DGS is just being here, being happy and smiling.
So what's next for May?
I don't expect to retire yet. So I'll be here sometime yet.
That was Teo Torres reporting. May's coworkers had been planning a big party before COVID-19 hit. They had to scale it back to a small brunch, but they look forward to throwing a big bash for May's 101st birthday next year. And finally tonight, a new priest is celebrating his new job by recreating an old picture. The picture on the left is from 1999 in Cliffside Park, New Jersey, when Father Nicholas Sertich was a child dressed up as St. Patrick, posing with Father Joseph Scarangella. The picture on the right is the two of them this past Sunday when Father Nicholas was ordained a priest. The Newark Archdiocese posted the throwback pic on Twitter. And in 3 days, Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio will ordain new priests for the diocese, 4 men answering God's call. And you'll be able to watch it live Saturday, June 27th at 11 a.m. right here on Net TV, New York's Catholic station. And that is Currents News. A reminder that next week we're going to be on hiatus ahead of the 4th of July holiday. Net TV is preparing an outstanding lineup of programs that will air while we're away. You can find the schedule at netny.tv. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.